I think today is a red letter day where we have all of us who are in the business of producing homes and also those who are financing the people who want to buy homes with the finance minister in our audience to listen to us. I think an occasion like this hasn't happened ever before. Because if I produce homes and the bankers don't give the money for the homes, my home buyer cannot buy. Having said that, there is this dream of our finance minister, and I think this dream has to be fulfilled only by the private sector. And who is supposed to fulfill that dream of housing for all is nobody but this joint effort of people in this room. Now, how can this dream be fulfilled? Now, it's very easy to say housing for all. It's very easy to say 6 crore homes or 2 crore homes or whatever numbers that you'd like to say. Now, the most important thing is we need to understand who's my target audience, who wants to buy my home, and where the home has to be built. Now, if we understand that as developers, there is always, you have the bottom of the pyramid, then you have, as you go up, you have different stages in the triangle that goes higher and higher. And today, the biggest need is at the bottom of the pyramid. And here, it's excellent to say that, listen, you please make affordable homes, make low-cost housing, but how it has to be done? A, I have to have access to land. I have to have access to capital which is very affordable, very cheap. And most importantly, there has to be public transport and connectivity. Because I can't make an affordable home in the center of the city. It has to go outside, and there has to be connectivity. That means my infrastructure has to develop. Now, having said all this, today the taxation policy also, sir, we do not want it. I mean, our president already pointed out a few things that are pain points as far as taxation is concerned. So I do not want to repeat that. The only thing that I would like to say is, unfortunately, in our situation today, we are taxing the house which is the smallest of the house, which is some 35 square meter to 50 square meter to 60 square meter. The same treatment is being given to a house which is 600 square meters or maybe even 6,000 square meters. I think there has to be some rationalization, there has to be some slab system, and I believe that the lower end of the pyramid, the economically weaker section, deserve a better deal and a better taxation policy as far as stamp duty, service tax, as well as VAT is concerned. Our president has brought up some few great ideas. I do not want to dwell upon it and repeat that. So what we need to do is, we need to fast pace our mega projects, such as the metro, the highway project, the mass transit. We need to increase our power grid. We need to see our water resources are kept properly so that we have water, because it's all very well to build those homes. If I don't have water, then there's nothing that is going to happen. Similarly, now coming to the finance part, now, today the RBI rules only have a 15% threshold for real estate, and the rest is for other industries. If that can be increased, and if we can get of course, it's a state subject. Most important is, see, our records are digitized and we get our approvals on time, because time for approval is money, is cost. And one suggestion that I have, which is, I believe that something it can be looked at, though the finance minister has said that he wants to bring down the tax rate and hence has to do away with a lot of exemptions. One house for anybody, wherever the interest is there for one house, should be 100% exempt. There is this old scheme of 1,50,000, which is actually of no value today. If we can give, whether we can probably even do a slab system for that, whether for the lower end, make it 100% exemption for one house, the interest. I think that will spur more and more buying for housing. And what we want to do, sir, we would like to have a sense of partnership between the government, between the authorities, and work together to see how we can build these homes, how we can make this dream of housing for all come true. And I'm very happy and very pleased, sir, that today you found time for us. You are in our midst, and at least you can listen to our pains, listen to our problems, and find solutions where we can work together to build this country and take it to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Sir, for expressing your points of view. Honorable FM Sir, you've heard our President as well as our Chairman put on record what is the possible requirement of this industry to be able to fulfill our Prime Minister's dream. On your request, may I please call upon National Housing Bank Managing Director and Chairman right now, Mr. Sriram Kalyan Raman, to express his point of view on certain benefits that are being offered by NHB.
Honorable Finance Minister, members on the dais, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry to sort of come in like this, but I just thought it's right to explain that they were talking about a 2.5% subsidy. There is already a subsidy scheme for affordable housing, which is launched by Government of India, which is 6.5% interest subsidy. There is no interest rate cap. There is no loan amount cap, except of course the size of the housing is fixed, which by a normal calculation would work for any houses up to 10 to 12 lakhs. And at a 6.5% subsidy, your effective interest rate for the customer is down to 4%. There are about 120 institutions in the country. Thank you. 120 institutions in the country. Both the housing finance companies, all the banks have signed the MOU with NHB as the nodal agency. And we would already started the workshop. In fact, as we speak, one is happening in Assam today with the bank's regional offices. Today morning, I was speaking to Mr. Damesh Jain to run it even with the CREDAI members. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for that very encouraging 4% housing loan that will be payable for all homes up to 12 lakh rupees. May we have the AV plate that we've prepared, sir? There's a small AV that we've prepared with all the pointers that, can be summed up for you before you can take the stage.
मैं मानता हूं आजादी के 75 साल जब हम मना रहे हैं तब हमारे भीतर एक आवाज उठनी चाहिए कि मेरे देश के अंदर कोई गरीब ऐसा ना हो कि जिसको फुटपाथ पर या झुग्गी झोपड़ी में जिंदगी गुजारने के लिए मजबूर रहना पड़े। ये हम बदलेंगे।
India has a shortage of 19 million homes which needs to be built in the next 7 years to fulfill the Prime Minister's vision. This poses a massive challenge which requires a giant leap from developers to increase their capacity as well as all-round support from all quarters. The real estate industry contributes 7.8% to India's GDP, which is expected to rise by another 5.2% in the next 13 years. We are the 4th largest sector in attracting FDI and the 2nd largest employment generator. However, the real estate sector continues to face economic, financial, and legal hurdles. For example, we suffer due to higher risk weightage of 150 basis points, high cost of capital, and banks being denied the ability to fund land acquisition post-2006. We have low levels of NPAs in this sector. Globally, real estate plays a far more active role. The mortgage penetration is 81% in USA, whereas in India, it is only 9%. This has a direct impact on its contribution to the country's GDP. For example, the real estate sector in USA contributes upwards of 15% to its GDP, whereas in India, it's a little more than 7%. If we in India need to see 19 million homes being built, the construction cost estimate would translate into 330 billion US dollars. For this dream to become a reality, we have an 8-point agenda. 1. The banking sector needs to increase their exposure by 8 to 10 times. The real estate sector needs to be considered at par with the infrastructure sector. The other capital resources like ECB and FDI route needs to be made more practical and flexible. 2. A lowering of risk weightage because the NPAs are very low when compared with other sectors, even though the real estate sector provides for physical real estate as a security for the loan. 3. Another pressing need is a broader coverage of the priority sector, wherein all affordable housing should be brought within the ambit of priority sector lending to give the required boost for the Prime Minister's vision. 4. Fiscal incentives provided to home loan borrowers and developers starting 1998 provided the required boost to the real estate economy, which resulted in 46% CAGR for a 7-year period. However, when these fiscal incentives in the form of ATIB was withdrawn post-2005, the growth was more subdued at 17%. 5. Another requisite is to provide better fiscal incentives to individual home loan borrowers by increasing the tax benefit from the current 2 lakh rupees to the desired 4 lakh rupees. Create a framework to provide flexible payment plans to housing loan borrowers. 6. Today, when a person purchases an apartment, many components of landed cost like VAT, service tax, and stamp duty are not considered in the value of the property, which increases his final margin. This obviously will lead to a happy situation with the end user. 7. Support for affordable housing. Affordable housing projects are a thin margin business and hence need government support to make it attractive. High taxes and approval costs as a percentage of revenue affect margin of safety for developers. 8. The real estate industry is one of the most taxed industry, wherein the approval cost and tax put together lead to an outgo of almost 42.5% of project cost in a city like Mumbai and 30.5% in a city like Delhi. There is an urgent need to address this and align it with other industries. In a nutshell, the real estate sector needs banking exposure to multiply by 8 to 10 times. Lower risk weightage for the real estate sector. The priority sector lending to include affordable housing. Reintroduction of ATIB. Increase fiscal benefit to housing loan borrowers up to 4 lakhs. Widen leverage of LTV to include all mandatory cost. Competitive spread of real estate loans. The long-term project loans need to match with the government's speed of approval.
Sir, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. We have put forth a film for you, sir, and we are hoping that every word that you say today will help our 11,500 members and growing in our 123 city chapters and our 24 state chapters to be able to fulfill the dream that we've had, that our Honorable Prime Minister has had of housing for all for 2022. May I request all of you to put your hands together, welcoming our Honorable FM to give us his views on the business of our business.
The office bearers of the CREDAI, present on the dais, members of CREDAI, bankers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much at the very outset for inviting me for this conference, where it's the synthesis of the construction industry and those who fund the construction industry, which is taking place. It's quite understandable that without any other attendant formalities that you came straight to the point. And as a association / a trade union of the developers, you chose this opportunity to place your wish list. Let us be clear, and before I come to the real industry, we must be fully conscious of the environment and the situation that we are living in. The global environment is not a helpful one. And therefore, instead of any of the usual tailwind supports that you get from the world, you have indications which broadly slow you down. And particularly the impact is on your export sector, which is facing various challenges. But then there is a silver lining in all this. And the silver lining is, and I think that seems to be India's strength today, that as a country we have a huge sense of resilience. Between the present decade and what happened in the 1960s and the 1970s, there is a world change. There is a sea change. And the sea change which has taken place is that not only India but every Indian has become more ambitious, he's become more aspirational. And therefore, the constituency which supports change, which supports growth, which supports consequently reform, today has become much bigger than the constituency which obstructs it. So the populist slogan of the 60s and the 70s, which were effectively obstructionist in nature, have increasingly lost their revenues. Have lost their relevance. But then the newest norm in the world is volatility, it is turmoil. Earlier, once in 15 years or 10 years, you could see or smell a crisis on account of some global event. Today, it almost keeps happening. And therefore, it's a great challenge for economies like India that whereas we remain globally integrated, our systematic firewalls have to be such that our ability to resist the impact of this volatility and turmoil itself is strengthened. And that is the direction in which we are increasingly moving. I am not going into the details of what we have done in the last 17 odd months. But as we stand today, we stand at a junction where the global growth is being rated down. The IMF now says it's 3.1%. There are conflicting assumptions how fast India will grow. We are unquestionably one of the fastest in the world, if not the fastest amongst the major economies. From the pessimist to the optimistic analysis, we are all placed in the 7 to 8% range. The World Bank has recently said it's going to be about 7.5% this year, gradually move up next year, and so on. But beholds these assumptions, if we look at which way the revenues are going, because the revenues are not based on assumptions, revenues are based on real money, the indications look more on the optimistic side.